This story is titled, My Golden Brother Was Screwing My Fiancée Behind My Back. My parents backed it and thought I'd still bankroll them. I canceled the wedding and cut ties. A year later, they wanted me to bail them out. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. All right, Reddit. Never thought I'd be one of those dudes posting my life drama here, but man, the shit that went down in my life? Reddit gold. Maybe some of you can learn from my mistakes and not waste years of your life like I did. Buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride. So I, 28 male, have always been the responsible one in my family. Not trying to toot my own horn, but facts are facts. Started working when I was 12, mowing lawns in the neighborhood. Saved up for my own car at 16, while my friends were getting brand new rides from mommy and daddy. Put myself through college with zero debt, and landed a pretty solid finance job that had me making six figures by 26. Again, not flexing, just setting the scene so you understand the dynamic. From day one, my parents treated my financial support like it was in their constitution somewhere. The eldest son shall provide bailouts when requested. When I got my first real paycheck, they immediately hit me up to help with the bills. When I got my signing bonus at my finance job, my mom called the same day asking if I could pay off their credit cards because family helps family. Never a thank you that didn't sound rehearsed. Never any recognition of what it cost me. Just grabby hands and guilt trips if I hesitated. Christmas? Had to get everyone expensive gifts. Family vacation? I was expected to cover just the airfare, which somehow turned into the whole damn trip. Dad needed a new golf membership? Suddenly, it was my duty to help him maintain connections for his business. Yep, entitlement at its finest. But hey, they were family. I should help. That's how I thought. My younger brother, Nick, 26 male, is basically the complete opposite of me in every way possible. Good-looking dude who can talk his way into or out of anything, but absolutely useless when it comes to actual responsibility or work ethic. This guy has dropped out of college twice, can't keep a job longer than a few months, and blows every single dollar he gets on gambling and overpriced crap to impress whatever girl he's trying to bang that week. And my parents? They think the sun shines out of his ass. Every failure in his life is just Nick finding himself, or Nick being free-spirited, while my achievements were always expected and barely acknowledged. When I made Dean's List, I got a nod and a, "That's what you're supposed to do." When Nick managed to not completely flunk out for a single semester, they threw him a damn party. Not even exaggerating. The crazy part is, despite this obvious favoritism, I still helped that loser thinking maybe he will learn from his mistakes this time. Paid off his gambling debts. 3 separate times. We're talking over $20,000 total. Let him crash at my place rent-free for months when he got evicted. Shocker. And used my connections to get him jobs he'd inevitably screw up. Yeah, I was the textbook definition of a sucker, but I guess that's what happens when you're conditioned your whole life to be the responsible one in the family. 7 years ago, I met my fiancée, ex now, Eleanor, 25 female, at a friend's house party. She was seriously gorgeous. That perfect mix of hot, but doesn't act like she knows it. Or so I thought at the time. Studying psychology, wanted to open her own practice someday. Smart, ambitious, great body, the whole package. We clicked immediately, and within a year she moved into my apartment. I covered most of our expenses, so she could focus on grad school without stressing about money. Paid for trips, nice dinners, designer stuff she needed for professional events and networking. I was investing in our future together, or so my dumbass believed at the time. We got engaged after 4 years together, and I was genuinely happy. Thought I'd hit the jackpot with a smart, beautiful woman who seemed to love me for me. Here's where things start getting sketchy. Now look, Nick and Eleanor hit it off from day one. They always got along. But things started shifting or developing. She started overdressing whenever we went for a family dinner. Put on too much makeup. Nothing inappropriate, but come on, you notice. Then I'd see her and Nick always whispering and laughing at jokes I wasn't part of. Texting constantly. At family gatherings, they'd somehow always end up in deep conversation in some corner. And when I asked about it, Eleanor would be like, "I'm just giving him sisterly advice." Yeah, sisterly advice that went with giggles and smiles. But I brushed it off as paranoia. I mean, my fiancé and brother getting along is a good thing, right? Not right. I'm just trying to indirectly say I was a fool. As our wedding date approached, we'd been engaged for about a year, I was putting in serious overtime to save for our future. 60-hour weeks minimum, sometimes more. I wanted to surprise Eleanor with a bigger down payment on a house after the honeymoon. Meanwhile, I started noticing more weird shit at home. Eleanor became obsessed with her phone, always angled away from me when texting. Started going out with friends from college 2 times a week. I'd say it's fine. Maybe she's stressed about the wedding and needs some space. I was too busy and too trusting. The wedding planning was mostly on her shoulders since I was so busy with work, and I felt guilty about that. So I compensated by agreeing to pretty much everything she wanted, no matter the cost. Premium venue? Sure. Exotic honeymoon? Of course. Designer dress? Whatever makes you happy, babe. Our joint bank account was taking a beating, but I figured it was worth it. We'd tighten our belts after the wedding. Plus, Eleanor was supposedly contributing her part from her part-time counseling gig. She'd show me spreadsheets of wedding expenses and her contributions, and I'd trust that everything was in order. I was too busy killing myself at work to double-check the numbers. Around 3 months before the wedding, I came home early from work one day. My boss had actually forced me to leave after I nearly fell asleep in a meeting. I was planning to surprise Eleanor, maybe take her to dinner. The surprise was on me, though. She wasn't home, despite telling me she'd be studying all evening for a certification exam. I didn't think much of it at first, figured she went out for coffee or needed a break. I crashed on the couch and ended up falling asleep. Woke up around 10 p.m. to Eleanor quietly coming in, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. When I asked where she'd been, she got defensive, claiming she needed to blow off steam with friends because she was stressed about the exam. I nodded. I knew something was going on, but I just acted normal for now. Hidden things won't stay hidden after all. Then, 1 week after that, she was showering and left her Apple Watch charging on the nightstand. A notification popped up. I'm not the type to snoop, but when I saw the name, I couldn't ignore it. It was from Nick. Can't wait to see you again. Just tell him you're meeting Jessica for drinks on Thursday. My blood went cold. I know I must respect her privacy and whatever, but seriously, when her privacy seems to include hooking up with your brother? Yeah, I wasn't gonna sit there like a princess. So I grabbed the watch. Passcode was my birthday, the fucking irony. Opened the Messages app and found everything. Hundreds of messages going for months. Photos I can never unsee. Them making fun of how they were banging in our bed while I was working late. Weekend trips disguised as family emergencies. The whole package. But wait, it gets better. Worse. I checked our wedding fund account and found regular withdrawals. Thousands missing. Traced them to hotel bookings, expensive restaurants, even a goddamn weekend spa trip, all with Nick. Meanwhile, I was working myself to death to save for our future. All these trips were scheduled whenever I had a conference or a work trip in a different state. Digging deeper, I found something that truly broke me. Messages between Eleanor and my parents. And guess what? They knew everything. Not only knew, but actively encouraged it. My mom told Eleanor that I was boring, and she deserved someone exciting like Nick instead of settling. My dad said he's happy. Eleanor seemed to have a good influence on Nick. What a wise man looking out for his golden son while screwing the life of the other. I sat there, phone in hand, reading through calculated betrayal by literally everyone I trusted. The woman I loved, my own brother, and my parents, all laughing behind my back, using my money, and planning a future that apparently didn't include me in the way I thought. I didn't explode, didn't shed a tear, just felt this cold, hard clarity like I'd never experienced before. These people were parasites, and I was finally seeing the situation clearly. And that's when I decided, no more Mr. Nice Guy always saving the day. I was about to show them exactly what happens when you push the boring, responsible guy too far. I didn't confront her that night, didn't lose my shit. Instead, I ended everything silently. First thing the next morning, Eleanor was still sleeping. I got up, made some coffee, and started working. Called my bank and moved half of our savings, which was mainly my money anyway, into a new private account she couldn't access. Then I called and canceled everything wedding-related. Venue, caterers, DJ, flowers, honeymoon reservations, all of it. Most places had non-refundable deposits, but I didn't even care about losing that money. It was better than making a mistake and getting stuck in a screwed marriage than a miserable divorce. By the time Eleanor woke up, the cancellation confirmations were already flooding her inbox. Her face when she saw them, priceless. She started frantically calling the vendors while staring at me with this confused look. I just calmly sipped my coffee and watched the show. When she finally asked what the hell was going on, I just shrugged and said, I didn't feel like getting married to someone who's banging my brother behind my back. She acted confused, but then broke down when I confronted her with the evidence, got defensive, Started throwing excuses. I was feeling lonely. You're always working. Yeah, not like I was busting my ass to give her the life I thought she deserved. I didn't listen and left for work. We'll talk later, getting late for work. My phone exploded that day. Calls and texts from her, my parents, even Nick. I ignored every single one. Let them stew in their own panic. Eleanor's messages went from confused to angry, to fake concerned, to straight up begging as the day went on. My parents insisted on talking things out. I only replied with one message. Of course we'll talk. Family dinner tonight, 7 p.m. That evening after work, got a fresh haircut. If I was going to burn their lives to the ground, I must do it with style. Then when I arrived at my parents' place, they were already waiting. Eleanor with puffed eyes sitting next to Nick at the dining table, both looking nervously at me. My parents had their concerned but disappointed faces ready to go. The table was set like this was just another family dinner, which somehow made the whole thing even more insulting. I didn't wait for anyone to start their bullshit speech. Just drop the damn evidence on the table. A folder inside. Every message, every photo, every hotel receipt, bank statements showing the missing money, screenshots showing the whole betrayal, the look on their faces as they realized what they were seeing. Absolutely priceless. The blood drained from Eleanor's face. Nick's smug expression cracked. Mom started panicking. The wise man started, "Let's discuss things like adults, son." I hadn't planned on getting physical. That's never been my style. But when Nick had the actual balls to start saying, "It's not what it looks like," something just snapped inside me. Before I even realized what was happening, I was across that table and my fist was connecting with his face. Felt his nose crack under my knuckles. The women were screaming. My dad was trying to grab me. Got in 2 more solid hits before they managed to pull me off him. Nick was curled up like a little bitch, covering his broken nose. I straightened my tie, fixed my cufflinks, and regained my composure. Told Eleanor I was canceling the lease, and she had 72 hours to get her stuff out of my apartment before it would be on the curb. Then I turned to my parents, who were hovering over precious injured Nick. Told them they'd never see another cent from me. No more bailing out Nick's gambling debts. No more helping with their property taxes when they came up short. No more funding family vacations under the guise of treating everyone. Reminded them how I'd been their safe net for years while they favored their deadbeat son, and that gravy train had just derailed permanently. My mom started crying, saying I was overreacting. We can fix things. My dad tried to go into his authoritative now son routine. Eleanor just kept sobbing these fake tears that didn't move me one bit. Nick was still too beaten up to contribute anything useful to the conversation. I made one final statement before leaving, that they were all dead to me from this moment forward. No second chances, no reconciliation, no forgiveness. They had spent years taking advantage of my loyalty and generosity, and it was over for good. I was done being everyone's backup plan and piggy bank. The absolute silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. They had nothing to say. No defense. No valid explanation. Nothing. I walked out with my head high, got in my car, and drove away from that house for the last time. Over the next few days, the messages continued, but with a different tone. Eleanor went from angry to desperate, claiming she'd made a terrible mistake and that Nick had seduced her, as if she had no agency in the year-long affair. My parents tried every manipulation tactic in their playbook. Guilt, shame, family obligation, even threatening to tell extended family that I was having mental health issues. Nick stayed pretty quiet, probably still nursing his broken nose. I responded to exactly none of it. Blocked their numbers. Set up email filters to send their messages straight to trash. Started the process of untangling any financial connections we still had. It was like cutting out a cancer. Painful, but necessary for survival. The shittiest part was dealing with mutual friends. Some immediately took Eleanor's side based on whatever bullshit story she fed them. Others tried to stay neutral, which in my book was just as bad. A few actually reached out to offer support, which I appreciated but mostly declined. I didn't need pity or hang in there platitudes. I was good. Work became my sanctuary. Threw myself into projects, stayed late every night, came in on weekends. By the end of 2 weeks, I had secured a lawyer to handle the apartment lease situation, closed all joint accounts and credit cards, changed my phone number, started looking for a new place to live. I was moving forward, and for the first time in my life, I was making decisions based solely on what was best for me, not what would keep the peace or help my family. It was liberating. The next 4 months were like some kind of weird rebirth. Honestly, never thought I'd be one of those living my best life after a breakup guys. But holy shit, did things improve fast once I cut those parasites out. First off, I completely disappeared from their radar. Moved out of my old apartment into a sweet downtown loft that cost more but was worth every penny for the peace of mind. Without Eleanor draining my bank account and Nick constantly borrowing money, my finances went from decent to rock solid practically overnight. Started actually seeing my savings grow instead of constantly explaining away mysterious withdrawals. Used some of that money to upgrade my wardrobe, bought some furniture I actually liked, instead of the IKEA garbage Eleanor had insisted was our aesthetic. Upgraded my car. Work became my main focus. All that overtime I'd been putting in started to pay off in a big way. My boss noticed I was suddenly even more productive. Amazing what you can accomplish when you're not constantly dealing with relationship drama. And put me on our biggest client accounts. 2 months after the wedding, that wasn't. I got promoted with a 30% salary bump. The financial analyst who was too boring was now one of the youngest senior managers in company history. Also started hitting the gym like a man possessed. All that anger and betrayal had to go somewhere productive, right? Found this boxing gym run by an ex-MMA fighter who didn't believe in taking it easy on newbies. After a few months, I dropped 15 pounds of fat, gained about 20 of muscle, and could actually hold my own in the ring. For the first time since basically forever, I wasn't responsible for anyone but myself. Didn't have to worry about bailing out Nick or funding Eleanor's endless needs or being my parents' backup plan. It was just me, spending my money on me. Sounds selfish when I write it out like that, but after a lifetime of being everyone's support system, it felt like freedom. Started making new friends too. Not the fake couple friends Eleanor and I had, but actual people with shared interests. Met some guys at the boxing gym who invited me to their poker nights. Connected with coworkers I'd previously been too busy for. During this time, I heard absolutely nothing from my family directly. They seemed to get the message that I was serious about cutting them off. But information has a way of trickling through even when you try to stop it. A cousin I was still on good terms with filled me in occasionally, not realizing he was breaking my no family news rule. Apparently, Nick and Eleanor's perfect relationship was imploding spectacularly. Without me funding their lifestyle, reality hit hard. Nick's gambling addiction spiraled out of control once he didn't have Big Brother to bail him out. They fought constantly, usually about money. He started cheating on her with some hookers just 3 months into their official relationship. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? My parents were struggling too. Without my gifts and loans and me covering family vacations, they had to seriously downsize. Dad had to postpone his retirement plans. Mom had to cancel her country club membership. Truly devastating stuff, right? Excuse me while I play the world's smallest violin. I won't lie. Hearing about their problems gave me a certain satisfaction. Not proud of it, but I'm being honest here. After years of them taking advantage of me while treating me as the lesser son, watching their perfect world crumble without my support felt like justice. Around the 4-month mark, just when I thought I was finally free of all that drama, I came home from a work dinner to find Eleanor sitting on the floor outside my new apartment. How did she find the address? Had no idea. For a second, I didn't even recognize her. The always perfectly put together woman I'd known was gone. Her designer clothes had been replaced with wrinkled sweats. No makeup. Hair unwashed and pulled back messily. Eyes puffy and red from crying. My first instinct was pretend I didn't see her. How the hell did she even find my new place? Had to be through someone at work. Mental note to figure out who the leak was and deal with that later. But what could she possibly want after everything? I was already guessing. But let's say I wanted to see her squirm in front of me. Against my better judgment, I let her into my apartment. Mostly because I didn't want my new neighbors witnessing whatever scene she might create in the hallway. As soon as the door closed behind us, the waterworks started. She launched into this clearly rehearsed speech about how Nick had changed after they got together, become controlling and abusive, gambled away their rent money, cheated with multiple women, how my parents turned on her when she complained about Nick's behavior, calling her ungrateful and not good enough for their precious son. Loyal, typical of them. She started sobbing that she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, throwing away years with a good man, that would be me apparently, for absolute garbage. Nick. She looked at me with those tear-filled eyes that used to make me do anything to make her happy, and asked if we could try again. Said she'd realized what she had too late, but that we could rebuild. The absolute fucking audacity of this woman was impressive. She genuinely thought I'd welcome her back with open arms, that I'd be so desperate and pathetic that I'd take her cheating ass back after everything, that her tears would make me forget everything. When she finished her performance, I shook my head, said I was sorry to know that. But then, well, I just laughed. Couldn't help it. The look of confusion on her face. Clearly, this wasn't following the script she'd imagined, where I immediately forgave her, and we fell into each other's arms. I laid it all out for her, reminded her with everything she did, the cheating, the disrespect. You're only sorry you got caught and that life with Nick wasn't the fairy tale you imagined, right? I asked. Oh, sweetheart, you really thought I was stupid enough to give you a chance? Her mask dropped instantly. The tears dried up like magic, and her face changed to something ugly and desperate. Started saying things like, I won't find someone like her. I escorted her to the door with a smile and told her that never finding someone like her again was exactly what I wanted. Suggested she try finding a job to support herself. The sound of that door closing behind her was more satisfying than any revenge I could have planned. Thought that would be the end of it. But Eleanor wasn't done yet. Over the next few weeks, she tried everything. Showed up at my office with flowers, security escorted her out, sent emails from new addresses, straight to spam. Even tried to get mutual friends to advocate for her. They were quickly ex-mutual friends. Each attempt more pathetic than the last. The final straw came when she showed up at my new gym, somehow having tracked down where I worked out. The dedication, ladies and gentlemen. She caused such a scene that the owner, my MMA trainer buddy, had to physically remove her from the premises. That was when I finally got a restraining order. Should have done it sooner, but part of me couldn't believe she'd keep pushing after such clear rejection. Didn't know she had that much of a no dignity. After the restraining order, Eleanor disappeared from my life, presumably to lick her wounds and find another target. I heard through the grapevine that she moved back to her parents' place in Ohio, telling everyone who would listen that I was emotionally abusive, and that's why she'd cheated. Classic Darvo move. Typical narcissist playbook. I couldn't care less. Meanwhile, my life continued its upward trajectory. The promotion led to more responsibilities, which I handled easily without the constant drama at home. Started taking actual vacations for the first time in years. Weekend trips to places I'd always wanted to visit. Bought myself the motorcycle I'd always wanted, and was being told it was too dangerous and immature. For the first time in my life, I was living entirely on my terms. But life has a funny way of not letting you enjoy peace for too long. Just when I thought all that drama was behind me, the Nick and Eleanor show evolved into something more twisted. And despite my best efforts to stay disconnected from my toxic family, their implosion was about to splash back onto me. The rumors about Nick and Eleanor's relationship troubles weren't exaggerated. They were actually understating the disaster. According to my cousin, who still occasionally updated me despite my protests, and God did she enjoyed the gossip, they broke up spectacularly after Nick cleaned out their joint account for a gambling spree. Left Eleanor with rent due and no way to pay it. When she called my parents for help, they basically told her it was her problem now. And Nick? He went crawling back to my parents, who welcomed their golden child with open arms despite everything. Some things never change. But this time, there was the thing they didn't see coming. See, my parents, those enablers extraordinaire, were finally facing the consequences of decades of poor parenting decisions. Without my financial support constantly patching the holes in their budget, they had to deal with Nick's bullshit using their own resources. And Nick, sensing weakness, went for the jugular. Somehow, and I'm still not clear on the exact details, he convinced them to mortgage their paid-off house to invest in some sure-thing business opportunity. Classic scam. But they fell for it because Golden Boy could do no wrong. When that inevitably failed, they remortgaged again to cover his gambling debts when some scary dudes showed up at their door. Then co-signed on a luxury car he promptly totaled while driving drunk. Then paid his legal fees for the DUI. One bad decision after another, the consequences actually stuck this time. Within months, my financially comfortable upper-middle-class parents were on the verge of bankruptcy. The house they'd lived in for 30 years was in foreclosure. Dad had to come out of retirement to work retail at 65. Mom was picking up shifts as a school cafeteria worker. And Nick? He pulled his usual disappearing act when things got tough. Changed his number, deleted social media, and went completely off-grid. Left my parents holding the bag for all his disasters. Probably running from loan sharks or hiding out with whatever new victim he'd charmed into supporting him. I heard all this secondhand and tried my best not to care. They'd made their choices, repeatedly, and now they were facing the consequences. I'd worked too hard to rebuild my life to get sucked back into their drama. But apparently, the universe wasn't done testing my nerves just yet. Almost exactly 1 year of no contact with my family, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I let random numbers go straight to voicemail. Thanks to Eleanor's stalker tendencies, I'd changed my number again. But I was expecting a call from a client, so I picked up. But nope, it was my mom. Hi, honey, it's been a while. Understatement of the fucking century. My first instinct was to hang up, but honestly, I was curious. She asked if we could meet to talk about an important family matter. Said it was urgent. I almost refused, but again, curiosity won out. I knew what the meeting was about, but come on. Where's the fun if I get rejected? I wanted to watch the whole thing unfold right in front of me, so I agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my office the next day. Showed up minutes early, got a prime corner table with a clear view of the door, ordered coffee, watched them walk in. Holy shit. If you told me these were my parents, I might not have believed you. Dad had lost at least 20 pounds, his hair was thinning, Mom's carefully maintained appearance was completely gone. No makeup, hair barely brushed, wearing what looked like clothes from a discount store. They looked like hell. They spotted me and did that awkward half smile. I didn't stand up, didn't smile back, just gestured to the chairs for them to sit. Mom tried to hug me. I leaned back. Let's skip the fake affection. What do you want? The story came out in pieces, between embarrassed glances and Mom's occasional tears. Turns out Golden Boy Nick had really outdone himself this time. So as I said, after I cut them all off financially, my parents had to deal with his bullshit using their own resources. Then they went on with the whole thing. How they were losing everything. House in foreclosure. Credit destroyed. Retirement accounts emptied. Medical bills piling up. Car repossessed. And how Nick disappeared completely about 4 months ago. Last act being draining their emergency savings before ghosting his own parents. Dad couldn't even look me in the eye as he pushed a folder across the table. Documents showing their financial disaster in excruciating detail. Mom did that manipulative crying thing. We need help, honey. We have nowhere else to turn. The magic number? $80,000. $50,000 to stop the foreclosure. $30,000 to clear the most pressing debts. They'd exhausted all other options. No bank would touch them with their crater of a credit score. No friends would lend to them anymore. Apparently, I wasn't the only one they'd burned. None of our relatives had that kind of money. I was their last hope. The boring, stable, financially responsible son they'd dismissed for years was now their only lifeline. The irony was so thick. We've made terrible mistakes, Mom whimpered. The things we said about you to Eleanor, the way we covered the whole thing, we were wrong. So wrong. Dad finally looked up. We were blind to who Nick really was. You were always the good one, son. For a split second, I almost felt something. Almost. But this wasn't really about me, was it? This wasn't them having some grand moral awakening about how shitty they'd been my entire life. This was them facing consequences and looking for an escape hatch. If Nick showed up tomorrow with a winning lottery ticket, they'd welcome him back with open arms and forget all about their tearful reconciliation attempt with me. What I did? I closed the folder without even looking through it and pushed it back across the table. Let me get this straight. You encouraged my fiancée to cheat on me with my brother. You told her I was boring and that she deserved someone exciting like Nick. You took advantage of me. Then, when I finally cut you all off, you continued enabling Nick until he completely ruined you financially. And now you want me to give you $80,000? Mom's tears flowed faster. We're still your parents. Family is family no matter what. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. Family is family? That's rich coming from you two. Where was this family loyalty when you were plotting against me? Dad tried one last time. We'll lose the house. We'll be homeless. At our age, we don't know what we'll do. I stood up and looked down at the two pathetic strangers sitting across from me. The same people who'd made me feel inadequate my entire life were now literally begging for my help. You should have thought about these consequences when you bet on the wrong son. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled it away. Please, she whispered. We have nowhere else to go. Not my problem. You made your choice. Nick's your son too. Go find him instead of wasting my time here. With that, I stood up, tossed a $20 bill for their coffee plus a tip, and walked away. Good luck with the foreclosure. I'd say keep in touch, but don't. The look on their faces as I glanced back through the window from outside? Perfect. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. No guilt, no second thoughts. Some might call it heartless. But walking away from those two manipulative leeches was the healthiest decision I've ever made. They weren't looking for reconciliation. They were looking for a new host now that their golden child had sucked them dry and moved on. I drove back to work, cranked up some music, and didn't think about them again until I sat down to write this post. And honestly, it feels good to be the villain in their story. Because in mine, I'm finally the hero. So that's it, Reddit. Felt good writing the whole thing, really. Thanks for reading. Stay safe from such parasites, fam. Edit 1. Thanks for the awards and all the support. To those asking if I feel bad about my parents potentially being homeless, again, no, not even a little. They've got other family they can guilt trip, and if that fails, there's always shelters. Edit 2. A lot of you are asking about Nick. Last I heard, through the same cousin who'd updated me before, long story how she found out, girl is a dedicated gossiper. Nick is living with some new girlfriend in another state. Apparently told her he's estranged from his toxic family. Poor thing, Nicholas. Edit 3. To the people DMing me that they're still your parents and you'll regret this when they die. Save your breath. The people who gave birth to you don't get a lifetime pass to treat you like garbage. And I already mourned them a year ago when I walked out of that dinner. Whatever happens to them now is just happening to two strangers who happen to share my DNA.